work hard to strike the right amount of intelligence and ignorance. The Last Show with David Cooper.
Are we too smart for our own good? Are we too dumb for our own good? Well, humanity has created doomsday devices, or at least tried to, that could destroy the Earth. And we're going to go over some of them here with Nathan Radke, a professor of conspiracy studies. He teaches at Humber Polytechnic. He's also got what's the word I'm looking for here? Podcast.
That sounds right, although Postacast sounds delicious.
It does. We're rolling with it. It's called the Uncover Up Conspiracy Cast. Nathan Radke, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me on.
So, secret doomsday devices, that is our topic. I'm sure unredacted released government files have both confirmed ones that exist that are horrifying and also plans for ones that are perhaps more horrifying.
Yeah, but here's the thing. We're already living in very perilous and frightening times. Sometimes it feels like we're just like a few minutes away from some kind of disaster. And I know you're very even-keeled and stiff upper lip, but many people are feeling a bit anxious these days.
No, sometimes I watch the news and I'm like, this is it.
I remember
this is
the end, my only
on
friend.
a certain day in January, just before a certain president named Biden was about to be indicted and certain people were getting upset at the Capitol building. I was like, this is it. That's the end of the republic.
I think I remember reading something about that. But to that end, because we're feeling anxious, because things feel like they're like on a knife's edge, I feel like it can almost be a little reassuring to know that we've been close to disaster before and we've survived. And so to cheer everybody up, to cheer up the listeners, let's talk about some doomsday devices.
Wow, I couldn't think of anything better than that. You know, you've come on the show and said we are living in strange and perilous times maybe 100 times.
Yeah, I think that's what I say now instead of hello.
I feel like if you ever write a memoir, an autobiography, you should start
just
we are living in strange and perilous times. Yeah. Okay, are we talking nuclear devices? Are we talking biological weapons? Are we talking lasers? Are we talking earthquake generators, weather manipulators, radio signals to tell the aliens, hey, come to Earth, we're done, you should destroy us? What are we talking when we say doomsday devices?
I mean, today we got them all. We've got some extraordinary engineering, we've got some biological know-how, we've got some nuclear expertise. The thing that they all have in common is that they all require a great deal of intelligence. And you know what? There's no denying human beings, they're extremely intelligent. We got the wheel. We harnessed fire that time. We did the internet.
Dippin' Dots?
Yeah, Dippin' Dots. That's the ice cream of the future.
At least it was supposed to be.
It was the future of the past.
What is the logic when I assume in most cases a nation, a state, what is the logic to create a device that can destroy the Earth? Is it basically just saying to your enemies, you can't mess with us, don't invade us, because if you do, we'll destroy everything?
I mean, sometimes that's the case, but then sometimes these nations keep it secret. And what's the point of having a deterrence device if you don't tell people about it? What it often is as well, especially during the Cold War, and these are all Cold War doomsday devices, is that if one side got the feeling that the other side was doing something, didn't matter how ridiculous it was, didn't matter how far-fetched it was, if one side said, hey, the other side is doing this, we got to do it too. You don't want to have a doomsday device gap.
So the USSR and the US are kind of like teenagers in high school, like, oh, she's doing this, I want to do it too, but instead with deadly devices.
Yes, and not quite as mature as teenagers in high school.
Fair enough. Let's start off with the first one.
Okay, so back in the 1950s, the American government was worried about how to stop Soviet bombers from nuking American cities. You can build surface-to-air missiles, you got jet interceptors, hopefully shoot the bombers down before they get close enough to deliver their payloads. But then Sputnik gets launched, because again, we're clever and we can figure these things out. And war planners realized, wait, if you can put a satellite into space on a rocket, you could put a nuclear warhead into a city with a missile. And unlike bombers, there's no way to shoot down a missile, or is there?
Ooh.
So they came up with all sorts of plans. My favorite is you'd put a bunch of space stations in orbit, and when the Soviets launched missiles, the space stations would release these enormous nets. And the nets would
like physical nets?
Like physical nets, like big fish nets. And then you'd catch the missiles with the big nets. And that was one of my favorites. But it was ruled out as being too impractical. But there was this Greek elevator repairman named Nicholas Christophilus. And during World War II, he had taught himself particle physics. And so he wrote to the American government with a plan. And the plan goes like this. The Earth has a magnetic field. And if you set off a bunch of atom bombs in the upper atmosphere, then radioactive particles would get caught up in that field and create sort of an artificial Van Allen belt. And then any missile that flew through that field would have their electronics fried by the radiation, and then the warheads would get deactivated. And
what is a Van Allen belt? I'm missing something here.
The Van Allen belt, it's this sort of natural belt of radiation that encircles the Earth because of our magnetic field. Particles from the sun get trapped in it. And so basically we'd be making one of those, but closer to the Earth and exactly where we wanted it to interrupt the electronics of nuclear missiles.
Okay, so detonating an extremely dangerous nuclear warhead in the middle atmosphere, what could possibly go wrong?
I mean, the American government was into this plan. So they put together a fleet of ships, and without telling most of the crews where they were going or what they were about to do, they sailed the fleet into the South Atlantic and fired a bunch of nuclear bombs into the sky to test Christopoulos' theory. And apparently, it looked very pretty.
Like Aurora Borealis situation?
Exactly like Aurora Borealis. And it sort of worked, but the particle field didn't last long enough to be useful. But that doesn't matter because Christopoulos already had another idea, a bigger idea. Build the world's largest particle accelerator using miles and miles of underground tunnels.
Okay. For what? To research the particles and better humanity, I assume?
Wait, no, not that at all.
Oh.
So the idea of the particle accelerator is you would create like a beam of charged particles and you would fire it up into the sky, and that's then how you would fry the electronics of any incoming missiles, and then they would just fall harmlessly to the ground and we'd be fine. Unless one happened to land on you, in which case you'd be crushed.
All right, so that just requires some mathematical calculations any high school student can do with a pad and paper. How do you get a laser beam of particles to hit a missile flying at Earth from a satellite at extremely high speeds? Like, this is not a trivial problem to solve.
This is not a trivial problem. Another non-trivial problem is how do you build miles and miles and miles of underground tunnels? Now, Christopoulos had a solution to that, and the solution, as always, was the problem as well. Use atomic bombs. Use atomic bombs to drill the tunnels into the Earth.
I mean, I see why this guy was not trained as a physicist and just taught it to himself. This guy was a big thinker.
Yeah, he had some big ideas. And he needed an even bigger idea because the problem was, okay, sure, we use these atomic bombs to blow a bunch of tunnels under the Earth. We build an enormous particle accelerator, but how are you going to power that thing? How are you going to power the world's largest particle accelerator? It would use more energy than the entire country would. And so here's the plan. You carve out a massive underground cavern beneath the Great Lakes. Now, inside that cavern, you build an enormous hydroelectric plant. The other thing you do is you take some atom bombs, because again, atom bombs, they do it all. It's like a Swiss Army knife, the atom bomb. You take the atom bombs, you put them on the ceiling of the cavern, which is also, of course, the floor of the Great Lakes. And then when somebody says, hey, we need all of the electricity in the world, you blow up those bombs. The Great Lakes basically drain, like the world's largest bathtub, into this cavern, into this this enormous power plant. And then that power runs the power generator, and then you could power your particle accelerator.
I see no problems with this plan. Budget, stealing the drinking water from millions of people, destroying natural. I see no issues with this plan. I assume it worked and they went through with it.
Well, I mean, it is almost foolproof. I mean, obviously there would be some surprised fish and some probably pretty alarmed boat captains. But, I mean, technically they said this could work, although you've raised one of the problems. How do you aim something that big? And also the whole thing is insane. But the plan was considered. It was called Project Seesaw, and it was considered, and some of our finest minds used their keen intelligence to look at it. But ultimately, tragically, sadly, Seesaw was never put into practice.
Eczema is unpredictable, but you can flare less with Ebglyss, a once-monthly treatment for moderate to severe eczema. After an initial 4-month or longer dosing phase, about 4 in 10 people taking Ebglyss achieved itch relief and clear or almost clear skin at 16 weeks. And most of those people maintain skin that's still more clear at 1 year with monthly dosing.
Emglis, lebrikizumab LBKZ, a 250 milligram per 2 milliliter injection, is a prescription medicine used to treat adults and children 12 years of age and older who weigh at least 88 pounds or 40 kilograms with moderate to severe eczema, also called atopic dermatitis, that is not well controlled with prescription therapies used on the skin or topicals, or who cannot use topical therapies. Emglis can be used with or without topical corticosteroids. Don't use if you're allergic to Emglis. Allergic reactions can occur that can be severe. Eye problems can occur. Tell your doctor if you have new or worsening eye problems. You should not receive a live vaccine when treated with Emglis. Before starting Ebglis, tell your doctor if you have a parasitic infection.
Ask your doctor about Ebglis and visit ebglis.lilly.com or call 1-800-LILY-RX or 1-800-545-5979.
A underground Great Lakes particle accelerator that would drain the lakes and have nuclear bombs that would shoot a laser into space to disarm Soviet bomb threats. This sounds insane, but it was a doomsday device prevention technique that the U.S. government actually researched. We're here with Nathan Radke, a professor of conspiracy studies. He works at Humber Polytechnic and he co-hosts the Uncover Up podcast. Now, Nathan, we're discussing doomsday devices. The worry is that we're smart enough to build a device that could destroy the Earth, but don't have the wisdom not to use it.
Yeah, intelligence is our ability to solve a particular problem, and we're clearly very good at that. But wisdom is the ability to decide which problems should we solve, and maybe we're not as good at that one. Intelligence is quick, wisdom is slow. Intelligence drives us forward, whereas wisdom sometimes holds us back from bad ideas. And all of these doomsday devices we're talking about, they require so much intelligence. But as we'll see with these next two, maybe not so much wisdom.
Well, let's jump right in. Let's go through some historic doomsday devices that we know about that were maybe created.
Well, this one was almost by accident. So let's talk some germ warfare.
Oh, boy.
This is something humans have been doing for a long time. 14th century, you catapult a diseased corpse into your enemy's city. 18th century, smallpox blankets used against the indigenous population in North America. But by the 20th century, we were really, really good at it. We got so good at it, we all decided it was a terrible idea. And in 1972, the world's powers passed the Biological Weapons Convention Treaty to end the development or production of biological weapons. And thanks to this treaty, now you had to be really sneaky and quiet when you developed and produced your biological weapons. And in the 70s and 80s, the Soviets had a program called Biopreparat. 50,000 workers in secret labs supervised by the KGB working on things like anthrax and smallpox. And there was even an accidental lab leak in Sverdlovsk in 1979 when a lab tech forgot to replace an air filter and dozens of locals died from anthrax.
Oh, boy. Ugh.
Because this is the problem when you're dealing with these horrifying substances.
After 9/11, everyone was talking about this threat of anthrax. I feel like it doesn't really get reported on in the news anymore.
Yeah, anthrax doesn't get any press anymore. It needs a new agent.
I don't know why I'm laughing. I guess just agent. Yeah.
But, worse than anthrax, worse than smallpox, a new disease shows up in Marburg, Germany in 1967. It shows great apocalyptic promise. They called it Marburg, of course, and it's a hemorrhagic fever that could be spread from human to human through direct contact or indirect contact. And Marburg, it's kind of like Ebola in the symptoms and in the lethality. The difference is that there's a vaccine and treatment options for Ebola, but nothing for Marburg. And since the consequences of contracting Marburg often include having your organs liquefy, including your brain, the lack of treatment or vaccine is particularly chilling, so this thing would make a great weapon.
Please tell me that the U.S. or the USSR didn't make it into a weapon.
Well, so here's the thing. In 1988, in a Siberian lab, there was biopreparat technicians, and they were working hard to figure out how to turn it into a weapon. Because again, it requires a lot of cleverness. You can't just release a disease. You got to make it more lethal. You got to make it more stable. You got to figure out some kind of vector to deliver it. And one of the scientists was a man named Nikolai Ustinov. And Dr. Ustinov was performing research on Marburg, trying to concentrate it so it's more lethal and stable. And he was about to inject a dose into a guinea pig when the animal squirmed in his hand. And that caused him to kind of, shudder a little bit. And he accidentally got himself in the thumb with a needle.
What is a scientist supposed to do in that case?
Well, at that point, they had to immediately lock down. Emergency measures were taken not to save him, because sadly that plague ship had already sailed. He was isolated from the rest of the employees. His family came to say goodbye from a protective distance. And basically, they waited for him to die of this. There was nothing that could be done. It's very tragic. He continued working at first, describing the symptoms from a professional's eye, like with a professional's eye, even as his own eyes are starting to bleed. And he'd come in and out of fever-induced delirium and unconsciousness. And even then, he would sometimes come to and describe this disease progression and say, oh, this is what's happening to me now. This is what's happening now. And then finally, his organs dissolved and he was killed.
Aye.
And his corpse was dangerous. It was a biohazard. So they wrapped him up in plastic and put him in a metal box that was welded shut. But before they did this, and this is the clever bit, they performed an autopsy and they tested some of that Marburg virus that had infected him. And when they tested it, they realized, wait a second. While this virus, this particular one, was killing Dr. Ustinov, it had mutated into a more viral and dangerous form.
Oh, great.
It was more powerful, it was more stable. And so before Dr. Ustinov was buried, wrapped in plastic and sealed in a metal case, the doctors harvested more of the virus out of his corpse for further testing. And then maybe to put into an aerosol dispenser, maybe you put it in a warhead. Maybe it just shows up mysteriously in a bustling city. And here's the kicker. The new version of that virus was called Variant U in Dr. Ustinov's honor.
Oh, wow. He was a true hero. And so that is just tech that I guess Russia now has, and they keep under containment and nothing could ever go wrong?
Well, I mean, yes, when has anything ever leaked out of a lab and caused chaos?
All right. Doomsday devices. That's what we're talking about. Let's go to our last one here. Project Pluto, named after the non-planet, sadly. I was discussing this on the show last week. Since the 90s, we've discovered all these exoplanets, but we've lost something. We've lost a planet here in our own solar system, Pluto.
Yeah, people
RIP.
took that really, really personally, I felt like. That wounded people, that loss of Pluto.
No one likes when you kick the little guy, you know? Like, if it was Jupiter can take it. Jupiter's a big dude, you know? Jupiter could take a few punches, but Pluto's vulnerable.
He was just a little guy out there. And he was named after a cartoon dog, as far as we knew when we were kids.
Exactly right. Okay, Project Pluto.
Right, so back in 1957, the American government was trying to figure out how do we get a nuclear warhead to Moscow. This is before ICBM, so you had to use old-fashioned bombers like we were talking about before, and bombers can get shot down. So they came up with a plan. Build a pilotless supersonic aircraft with a nuclear engine. So the engine itself was nuclear. And because it's a nuclear engine, it could generate impressive high velocities. It could fly for days and days and days without running out of fuel. Now, this aircraft, it wouldn't have a pilot. It would be very large. It would fly at treetop level at 3 times the speed of sound. Now, that means that the shock wave alone at that height, at that speed, the sonic booms created would basically squish you. So this thing could just fly around for days and days and days, squishing everything that it flew over.
Okay.
And because it used a nuclear engine, the exhaust would be radioactive.
Oh, so it sounds like a perfectly safe device.
So flying around for days and days, squishing things and being radioactive, and the vehicle could hold up to 16 1-megaton nuclear bombs.
Oh, no. Okay. Did they ever build it?
Well, they went pretty far in building this one. Unlike some of the other projects, this one actually, it cost a lot of money and they did a lot of testing. The idea is you'd fire this thing off, it would blaze a squish trail of radioactive fallout. You'd never see it coming, and because it was going 3 times faster than sound, you'd never hear it coming. And then, after it destroyed 16 cities with its 16 bombs, it would crash itself into one final target, leaving behind a crater and lethal cloud of nuclear waste.
Great. Sounds like a wonderful device. Where can I buy one?
See, again, we're very, very clever. But it was decided because it was too dangerous to even test, eventually the program was canceled.
Huh.
But my point is this. Things seem grim and scary right now. There's no denying it. But we've managed to survive our cleverness so far. And there's always a chance maybe our wisdom catches up to our intelligence. And maybe at some point we use our cleverness to make life better rather than weirder and scarier.
Some of the individuals that have been at the helm of these doomsday devices, I'm thinking presidents, USSR figures, we've made it this far, you know, without total annihilation. Maybe we'll continue to make it farther.
Exactly. And so the end, I think this is actually kind of an optimistic story. This is an optimistic segment. So you're welcome.
Well, thank you, Nathan. I always enjoy having you on the show. Check out Nathan's podcast. It's called the Uncover Up Conspiracy Cast. Nathan is a professor of conspiracy studies at Humber Polytechnic. It has been a joy having you on the show, Nathan. Thank you for being here.
Always happy to be here.
Monster Energy. Everybody knows White Monster Zero Ultra. That's the OG. It kicked off this whole zero sugar energy drink thing. But Ultra is a whole lineup now. You've got Strawberry Dreams, Blue Hawaiian, Sunrise, and Vice Guava. And they all bring the Monster Energy punch. So if you've been living in the white can, branch out. Ultra's got a flavor for every vibe. And every single one is zero sugar. Tap the banner to learn more.